When I was 8 months pregnant, the whole family gathered to have dinner, and that's when my in-laws announced, "We will be giving you a brand new car and a luxury holiday getaway, and we will be adding $100,000 in your baby's fund." Everyone congratulated, but my family gave me nasty looks. When everyone left, my mother said, "Well, your sister has 3 kids, and that money could really help her." When I refused, my greedy sister tried to steal my baby fund while my husband was away. When I stopped her, she lost control and kicked my pregnant belly so hard that my water broke. But she didn't stop. She grabbed my hair and dragged me across the floor. The pain was unbearable and I fainted. Few hours later, when I woke up in the hospital, the doctor revealed something shocking. The dining room was filled with the warm glow of candlelight and the scent of roasted chicken. My husband Marcus had his hand resting protectively on my lower back as I waddled to my seat, my 8-month belly making every movement feel like I was carrying a bowling ball under my shirt. His parents, Richard and Patricia, had insisted on hosting this family dinner, and both sides of our families were present. My mother Linda sat across from me, her lips pressed into that familiar thin line of disapproval. Next to her was my older sister Amber, flanked by her 3 children, Tyler, Madison, and little Ethan, who were already making a mess with the breadbasket. My father George looked uncomfortable, as he always did when family tensions simmered beneath polite conversation. We were halfway through the meal when Patricia stood up, her wine glass raised. Richard joined her, clearing his throat in that formal way that meant an announcement was coming. "We have some wonderful news to share," Patricia began, her eyes shining as she looked at Marcus and me. "As you all know, our first grandchild will be arriving soon, and we couldn't be more thrilled." Marcus squeezed my hand under the table. "We wanted to do something special for our son and daughter-in-law as they start this new chapter," Richard continued. "We've purchased a brand new SUV for them, something safe and spacious for the baby. We've also booked a luxury vacation package to Hawaii for after the baby arrives and things settle down." My jaw dropped. Marcus looked just as stunned. Patricia wasn't finished. "And most importantly, we've established a trust fund for our grandchild with an initial deposit of $100,000. The room erupted in congratulations. Marcus's siblings came over to hug us. Friends were patting Marcus on the back. My hands were shaking as I tried to process the overwhelming generosity. But across the table, my family sat in stony silence. Amber's face had gone pale, then red. My mother's expression could have curdled milk. Even my father looked uncomfortable, though for different reasons than before. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. I kept catching Amber glaring at me while she cut her children's food into aggressive little pieces. My mother barely spoke, offering only clipped responses when directly addressed. After dessert, Marcus's family began to leave. His sister Jennifer pulled me aside. "You deserve all of this, Sarah. You've been so good to our brother, and we're thrilled about the baby." I hugged her, tears stinging my eyes. "Thank you. This is all so overwhelming." As the last of Marcus's relatives left, I turned to find my mother standing in the doorway, arms crossed. Amber was behind her, practically vibrating with barely contained rage. "Well," my mother said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Isn't that just wonderful for you?" "Mom, your sister has 3 kids, Sarah. 3 mouths to feed. That money could really help her." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Excuse me?" Amber stepped forward. "You heard her. You don't even have the kid yet, and you're getting $100,000 just dumped in your lap. Meanwhile, I'm struggling to pay for Tyler's braces and Madison's dance classes." "That money is for my baby," I said, my voice shaking. "Marcus's parents set it up specifically for their grandchild." "You always were selfish," Amber spat. "Everything handed to you on a silver platter while the rest of us have to work for every penny." My father finally spoke up. "Girls, this isn't. Stay out of this, George," my mother snapped. She turned back to me. "The right thing to do would be to share that money with your sister. Family helps family." Marcus appeared beside me, his face dark with anger. "With all due respect, Linda, that money was a gift from my parents to our child. It's not up for discussion." "Of course you'd say that," Amber sneered. "You probably put them up to it, flaunting your rich in-laws while my kids go without." "Your kids aren't going without anything," I shot back, finding my voice. "You and Derek have good jobs. You have a nice house. Just because you don't have wealthy parents-in-law doesn't mean you're entitled to mine." My mother's eyes narrowed. "I raised you better than this." "You raised me to have boundaries," I said quietly. "And right now, I need you all to leave. This is my home, and I won't be bullied in it." "We'll see about that," Amber muttered as they filed out. Marcus closed the door behind them and pulled me into his arms. "Are you okay?" "I don't know," I whispered into his chest. "I can't believe they're jealous," he said firmly. "And that's their problem, not yours. Our baby is going to have a secure future, and we're not going to apologize for that. Over the next few weeks, the calls and texts from my mother and sister became relentless. They alternated between guilt trips and outright demands. My mother sent long messages about how disappointed my late grandmother would be in my selfishness. Amber sent photos of her kids with captions about how they deserved nice things too. The messages became increasingly unhinged. Amber would text me at 3 in the morning with calculations of how much her children cost to raise versus what we were getting from Marcus's parents. She'd itemized everything: groceries, clothing, school supplies, as if presenting a case to a judge. My mother called Patricia directly, asking her to reconsider and split the money between both families. Patricia, to her credit, firmly declined and told me about the call immediately. "Your mother actually suggested we were playing favorites," Patricia said during one of our coffee dates. I explained that we were establishing a fund for our grandchild, not making a family donation. She hung up on me. The stress was affecting my sleep. I'd wake up multiple times each night, my heart racing from dreams where Amber was chasing me through endless hallways, demanding money I didn't have. Marcus noticed the dark circles under my eyes and suggested I speak to a therapist. Dr. Helen Brennan's office was warm and comfortable, filled with plants and soft lighting. During our first session, she helped me understand what I was dealing with. "Your family has established a pattern of emotional manipulation," she explained. "Your sister's entitlement didn't develop overnight. These behaviors were likely reinforced throughout your childhood." I found myself opening up about memories I'd buried. How Amber convinced my parents I'd stolen money from her wallet when I was 12, money I later found out she'd spent on cigarettes. How she'd ruined my 16th birthday by announcing her pregnancy with Tyler, ensuring all attention shifted to her. How she'd deliberately scheduled her wedding on the same weekend as my college graduation, forcing me to choose between the two. "She's always needed to be the center of everything," I told Dr. Brennan. "And my mother enabled it because Amber threw tantrums when she didn't get her way." How does it feel to finally set boundaries with them? Terrifying, I admitted. But also liberating. For the first time, I'm putting my own family first. Marcus accompanied me to a session, and we talked about our fears regarding the baby and the ongoing harassment. Dr. Brennan taught us techniques for managing stress and maintaining our boundaries despite external pressure. "You're allowed to protect your peace," she said firmly. "You're about to become parents. Your priority is your child and each other, not managing other people's jealousy." I blocked them both after Amber sent a text saying she hoped I had a difficult labor. That text arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, while Marcus and I were watching a movie. I stared at the words until they blurred, then handed my phone to Marcus. His face went white, then red. "I'm calling them right now." "No," I said, surprising myself with a steadiness in my voice. "Block them both. If they want to reach us, they can send a letter like civilized people. I'm done with this digital harassment." We blocked their numbers, their social media accounts, and their email addresses. The silence that followed was initially unsettling. I kept checking my phone expecting another venomous message, but gradually, it became peaceful. Jennifer came over with her kids one afternoon, bringing baby clothes and advice. "Mom told me what's happening with your family," she said as we folded tiny onesies. "I can't imagine treating my sister that way." "Amber and I have always had a complicated relationship," I said carefully. "But this is beyond anything I expected." "You know what bothers me most?" Jennifer asked. "It's not even about the money. It's about respect. Your baby deserves that security. You and Marcus have worked hard for your life. Nobody gets to make you feel guilty for being blessed." Her words stayed with me. I wasn't lucky. Marcus and I had both worked full-time while putting ourselves through college. We'd saved aggressively, lived below our means, and made sacrifices to build our life. His parents' generosity was wonderful, but it wasn't the foundation of our stability. We were. Marcus had to leave for a business conference in Chicago. He was supposed to be gone for 4 days, and he was anxious about leaving me so close to my due date. "I'll be fine," I assured him at the airport. "Your mom is just 20 minutes away, and Jennifer said she'd check on me daily." "Call me if anything feels off," he said, kissing my forehead. "I mean it, Sarah. Anything at all." I spent the first day of his absence organizing the nursery and catching up on a novel I'd been meaning to finish. The house felt too quiet without Marcus, but I enjoyed the solitude. The doorbell rang around 2 in the afternoon on the second day. I assumed it was Jennifer making good on her promise to check in. Instead, when I opened the door, Amber stood there with a bright, false smile plastered across her face. "Hey, sis," she said. "Can I come in?" Every instinct told me to say no, but we were still family. Despite everything, some small part of me hoped we could work things out. "I guess," I said, stepping aside. She walked in, her eyes darting around the living room. "Nice place. Marcus really does well for himself, doesn't he?" "What do you want, Amber?" Can't a sister just visit? She settled onto the couch without invitation. I wanted to apologize. Mom and I were out of line at that dinner. Your in-law's generosity is wonderful, and we should have been happy for you. I sat down carefully in the armchair, my belly making it difficult to find a comfortable position. Thank you. That means a lot. Where's Marcus? Chicago. Business conference. Something flickered across her face. So you're all alone? A chill ran down my spine. Jennifer's coming by later. Right. She stood up abruptly. Mind if I use your bathroom? Upstairs, first door on the left. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, then the bathroom door close. But instead of the sound of running water, I heard the creak of the hallway floorboard, the one that led to our bedroom. My heart started pounding. I heaved myself out of the chair and moved as quickly as my pregnant body would allow to the stairs. By the time I reached the second floor, I could hear drawers opening in our bedroom. Amber? I called out. What are you doing? I pushed open the bedroom door to find her rifling through Marcus's desk drawer. Papers were scattered across the floor, and she had a folder in her hands, the one with the bank information for the baby's trust fund. Put that down, I said, my voice steel. She spun around, her face twisted with desperation. You don't need all this money, Sarah. My kids are here now. They need things now. Your baby won't even know the difference. That account is in my baby's name. You can't access it even if you have the information. Derek's cousin works at a bank. He can figure it out. I just need the account numbers, the routing information. Get out of my house. No. She clutched the folder tighter. You have everything. A husband who worships you, rich in-laws, a big house, and now this money. What about me? What about my kids? I moved toward her, trying to snatch the folder back. Your kids are fine. You're just greedy. She jerked away from me, her face contorted with rage. Greedy? I'm trying to survive. Tyler needs braces. Madison's dance classes aren't cheap. Ethan's daycare costs more than our mortgage. And you sit here in your palace with your perfect life and your $100,000 like some princess. I worked for this life, I shot back. I didn't just expect it to be handed to me. And Marcus and I have been saving for years to make sure we could provide for our child. We don't owe you anything. You owe me respect, she snarled. I'm your older sister. I've always looked out for you. You've always been jealous of me, I said, the truth finally spilling out. Ever since we were kids. Whenever I had something nice, you couldn't stand it. Remember when Grandma gave me her pearl necklace? You stole it and claimed you lost it when I asked where it went. Or when I got accepted to my first choice college. You told everyone I only got in because of affirmative action, even though we're both white. You spent your entire life trying to tear me down. That's not true. She screamed, but her eyes told a different story. You were always the favorite. Perfect Sarah with her perfect grades and perfect life. Do you know what it was like being compared to you constantly? I was compared to you too. I shot back. Mom always said I should be more outgoing like you, more social like you. The difference is I didn't spend my life resenting you for it. I built my own path instead of tearing down yours. Easy to say when everything falls into your lap. Nothing fell into my lap. Marcus and I ate ramen for dinner 4 nights a week when we were first married so we could save money. I worked 2 jobs while finishing my degree. You had a full ride scholarship to state that you dropped out of after 1 semester because partying was more important. Don't lecture me about hard work when you've spent your entire adult life making excuses. The words hung in the air between us, years of unspoken resentment finally given voice. Amber's face contorted through several emotions, shock, rage, hurt, and finally something cold and calculating. Fine, she said quietly, too quietly. If that's how you really feel about me, then you won't mind if I take what I came for. Her face went purple. I made sacrifices for you. I helped Mom and Dad with you when times were tough. You were 17 when I was 10. You didn't sacrifice anything. You babysat me twice and acted like you'd raised me yourself. She lunged at me, trying to push past toward the door with a folder. I grabbed her arm, and we struggled. The folder fell to the floor, papers spilling everywhere. Let go of me. She screamed. Leave my house. I screamed back. Then everything happened in slow motion and too fast all at once. Amber's leg came up, and her foot connected with my pregnant belly with brutal force. The pain was instantaneous and excruciating, like nothing I'd ever felt. I gasped, doubling over, and felt a rush of warm liquid down my legs. My water had broken. Oh my God, I managed to choke out. Amber, my water? But she wasn't done. Her face was twisted beyond recognition, beyond reason. She grabbed a handful of my hair and yanked me backward. I lost my balance, my feet sliding in the amniotic fluid, and she dragged me out of the bedroom and into the hallway. "You entitled bitch," she was screaming. "You think you're so much better than me." The pain in my belly was getting worse, coming in waves. Contractions. The baby was coming too early. I tried to fight back, to protect my stomach, but she was stronger and crazier than I'd ever imagined. She dragged me to the top of the stairs, and for one horrible moment, I thought she was going to push me down. Instead, she threw me aside, and my head cracked against the hallway wall. Black spots danced across my vision. The pain was unbearable, in my head, in my belly, everywhere. I could hear Amber's voice getting distant, saying something about how I'd driven her to this, how it was all my fault. Then everything went dark. I woke up to blinding white lights and the sound of beeping machines. My head felt like it had been split open, and my entire body ached. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was or what had happened. Then it all came rushing back. Amber. The fight. My water breaking. The baby. I tried to sit up, but gentle hands pushed me back down. "Easy, Mrs. Anderson. You need to stay still." A doctor came into focus above me. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and gray streaks in her dark hair. "I'm Dr. Michelle Torres. You're at Mercy General Hospital. Do you remember what happened?" "My sister," I gasped out. "She kicked me. My water broke. The baby, where's my baby?" Dr. Torres's expression was carefully neutral. "Your baby is in the NICU. We had to perform an emergency C-section. You were unconscious when you arrived, and the baby was in distress." Panic seized me. "Is my baby okay? Please tell me my baby's okay." "Your daughter is alive and stable," Dr. Torres said. "She's premature at 34 weeks, but her vitals are good. She's in an incubator and will need to stay in the NICU for a while, but the prognosis is positive." "A daughter?" "I had a daughter." Tears streamed down my face. "Can I see her?" "Soon," Dr. Torres promised. "But first, I need to tell you something important. When you were brought in, you had significant trauma to your head and abdomen. The paramedics said your neighbor called 911 after hearing screaming and finding you unconscious at the top of your stairs." Mrs. Chen. Thank God for Mrs. Chen. "We had to document all your injuries for the police report," Dr. Torres continued. "You had a concussion, bruising around your scalp consistent with hair pulling, and significant bruising on your abdomen from blunt force trauma. The impact to your stomach is what triggered the premature labor." I closed my eyes. The reality of what Amber had done was settling over me like a heavy blanket. "There's more," Dr. Torres said gently. "During the C-section, we discovered something unusual. You have a condition called uterine didelphys. Do you know what that is?" I shook my head, confused. "It means you have two uteruses. It's a rare congenital condition that affects about 1 in 3,000 women. Most women who have it don't know until they're pregnant or undergoing imaging for other reasons." "Two uteruses?" I repeated, trying to process this information while my head throbbed. "Yes. Your daughter was developing in your right uterus. During the surgery, we discovered that you're also pregnant in your left uterus. You're carrying twins, Sarah. Fraternal twins in separate uteruses." The room spun. "That's not possible." "It's extremely rare, but it does happen with this condition. Based on the ultrasound we did during surgery, your second baby is about 3 weeks behind your first in development. This baby appears healthy and wasn't affected by the trauma because it's in the other uterus. We were extremely careful during the C-section. We made the incision only in the right uterus and took every precaution to avoid disturbing the left uterus where your second baby is developing. So I'm still pregnant?" My hand went to my stomach, which was now covered in bandages from the C-section on the right side. "Yes. The second baby is still developing normally at approximately 31 weeks. You'll need to remain pregnant with this child while your daughter is in the NICU. It's an unusual situation, but not unheard of with uterine didelphys. We'll monitor you very closely, and you'll need to be extremely careful during recovery since you're healing from surgery while still carrying a pregnancy." My mind was reeling. I had one baby in the NICU and another still growing inside me. "Your husband is on his way," Dr. Torres added. "He's been notified and should be here within a few hours. The police are also waiting to speak with you when you're ready." As if on cue, a police officer appeared in the doorway. Detective James Morrison introduced himself and asked if I felt well enough to give a statement. I told him everything: the dinner, the money, Amber's break-in, the assault. "Your neighbor's testimony corroborates your account," Detective Morrison said. "She saw your sister leaving the house in a hurry. We've already arrested Ms. Amber Sullivan. She's being charged with breaking and entering, attempted theft, assault, and assault on a pregnant woman, which carries enhanced penalties." "What about my baby?" I asked. "She hurt my baby." We're consulting with the DA about additional charges related to endangering the fetus and the premature birth. Given that you're still pregnant with your second child, this is a unique situation legally. After he left, a nurse wheeled me to the NICU. My daughter was so tiny in her incubator, hooked up to wires and tubes. She weighed just 4 pounds 3 ounces. Her eyes were closed, and she had a little pink cap on her head. "She's beautiful," I whispered, pressing my hand against the incubator's plastic wall. "She's a fighter," the NICU nurse said. "She's breathing well on her own already. That's a great sign for a 34-weeker. The nurse noticed me wincing as I adjusted in the wheelchair. "How are you managing?" "It's got to be difficult recovering from a C-section while still pregnant." "It's surreal," I admitted. "I keep forgetting I'm still pregnant because I just had a baby." "You're about 31 weeks along with the second one now, right? So you've got about 9 more weeks to go, give or take. We've had a couple cases of delayed interval delivery with twins, but never quite like yours. Having them in separate uteruses makes this situation unique." Marcus burst through the door an hour later, his face pale and eyes wild. When he saw me, he broke down completely. I'd never seen my husband cry like that. "I should have been here," he sobbed. "I should have protected you." "You couldn't have known," I said, holding him as best I could with one arm while the other was hooked up to N4. I told him about our daughter, and then about the shocking discovery of the second baby. He sat in stunned silence, processing it all. "2 babies," he finally said. "We're having 2 babies. Apparently. And Amber did this?" His voice turned cold. "She hurt you and almost killed our daughter? The police have her. She's going to face charges." "Charges aren't enough," Marcus said darkly. "But it's a start." Patricia and Richard arrived next, bringing flowers and tears. Marcus's mother held my hand and apologized profusely, as if their generous gift had somehow caused this. "This isn't your fault," I told her firmly. "You gave us an incredible gift. Amber's actions are her responsibility alone." My father showed up in the evening, looking 20 years older. He sat by my bed, his head in his hands. "I should have seen it," he kept saying. "I should have known she was capable of something like this." "Where's Mom?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. "She's at home. She's not taking this well." "Is she still defending Amber?" His silence was answer enough. "I need you to understand something, Dad," I said carefully. "What Amber did wasn't just about money or jealousy. She tried to steal from me, she assaulted me while I was 8 months pregnant, and she could have killed my daughter. If Mom can't see that, then I can't have her in my life. And I need to know that you understand the severity of what happened." He looked up at me with tears in his eyes. "I understand, sweetheart. Your mother is struggling because she doesn't want to believe her daughter could do something so terrible. But I was very clear with her, what Amber did was unforgivable. I'm standing with you." Over the next 2 weeks, I lived in a strange limbo. I was recovering from a C-section while still pregnant, visiting my daughter in the NICU multiple times a day, and dealing with the legal aftermath of Amber's attack. Our daughter, we named her Grace Patricia Anderson, grew stronger every day. She graduated from her incubator to an open crib, and we were finally able to hold her skin to skin. The feeling of her tiny body against my chest while knowing her sibling was still growing inside me was surreal. My own recovery was complicated. The doctors monitored me constantly, worried that the trauma and stress could trigger early labor with the second baby. I had to be careful about lifting Grace, about how I moved, about everything. Dr. Torres warned me that carrying a pregnancy to term after a C-section was challenging enough without the added complication of having just delivered a premature baby. "You're doing remarkably well," she told me during a checkup. "Your left uterus shows no signs of distress from the surgery on the right. The baby's heartbeat is strong, growth is on track. We're aiming for at least 37 weeks if possible." The legal process moved forward slowly. Amber remained in custody, unable to make bail. Her preliminary hearing revealed the depth of her desperation. She'd racked up over $60,000 in credit card debt trying to maintain a lifestyle she couldn't afford. Derek, her husband, had been laid off 6 months earlier but hadn't told anyone. They were behind on their mortgage and facing foreclosure. None of this excused what she'd done, but it explained her desperation. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Catherine Wells, met with Marcus and me several times over the following weeks. "We're building a strong case," she assured us. "The physical evidence is overwhelming, and Mrs. Chen's eyewitness account is solid. Your sister's attorney is already floating the idea of a plea deal." "How long would that take?" Marcus asked. "These things typically take months," Catherine said. "Maybe 4 to 6 months before we see any resolution. But given the severity of the charges and the evidence we have, I expect your sister will take a deal rather than risk a trial." My mother finally came to the hospital 3 weeks after the attack. I was sitting in the NICU with Grace when she appeared in the doorway. She looked like she'd aged a decade. I'd been dreading this moment. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to blame her for enabling Amber's worst traits. Another part of me just wanted my mother to hold me and tell me everything would be okay. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. I gestured to the chair across from me. Grace was sleeping peacefully, her tiny chest rising and falling steadily. She'd gained 3 ounces that week, and the doctors were pleased with her progress. "She's beautiful," my mother whispered. "She is." We sat in silence for a long moment. I could hear the soft beeps of monitors, the whisper of ventilators for other babies in the unit. A nurse moved quietly between incubators, checking vitals and making notes. My mother reached out as if to touch the incubator, then pulled her hand back. "I don't know if I have the right to be here." "You're her grandmother," I said simply. "Of course you have the right. After everything I said, everything I enabled." Her voice broke. "I defended the indefensible, Sarah. I chose your sister over you when you needed me most." "Why?" The question came out more plaintive than I intended. Why was it always her? My mother was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "Because I saw myself in her. All my worst qualities, the insecurity, the jealousy, the feeling that life was somehow unfair to me specifically. I recognized those traits, and I thought I could fix them in her since I'd never fixed them in myself." I hadn't expected that level of honesty. "I'm sorry," she finally said. "I've been a terrible mother to you. I let my favoritism for Amber cloud my judgment, and I enabled her worst behaviors. What she did was monstrous, and I should have seen the warning signs. There were so many signs," I said quietly. "She stole from me when we were kids. She sabotaged my relationships. She made everything about her, always. And you let her because it was easier than dealing with her tantrums." "You're right." My mother wiped her eyes. "After your father told me what happened, what she really did to you, I couldn't breathe. I kept thinking about you lying there, pregnant and bleeding, while my other daughter ran away like a coward. And I realized I'd created that coward. You didn't kick my stomach, Mom. You didn't drag me across the floor. Amber made those choices. But I made her believe the world owed her whatever she wanted. I taught her that if she cried loud enough, someone would fix her problems. And when she couldn't get what she wanted from me anymore, she came after you." "Why was it always Amber?" I asked, the question I'd carried for years finally emerging. "Why did you always take her side?" My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Because she needed me more, or so I thought. You were always so independent, so capable. You got good grades without being pushed, you made friends easily, you landed on your feet. Amber struggled with everything. I thought I was helping her by supporting her, but I created a monster who thought the world owed her everything. I needed you too, Mom. I still need you. I know that now." She reached across and took my hand. "I can't undo the past, but I want to be better. I want to be the grandmother your daughters deserve." "Daughters plural," I said with a small smile. "There's another one still cooking?" She smiled through her tears. "I heard about that. It's a miracle." My mother became a regular presence at the hospital after that. She brought meals, helped with paperwork, and sat with Grace when Marcus and I needed to rest. She was trying, genuinely trying, and I decided that was enough for now. Amber took a plea deal to avoid trial. She pled guilty to aggravated assault on a pregnant woman, breaking and entering, and attempted theft. The DA decided not to pursue additional charges related to Grace's premature birth, but the sentence was still significant, 8 years in prison with possibility of parole after 5. The courtroom was cold and sterile when we attended her sentencing hearing. Marcus held my hand on one side, his mother on the other. Amber stood before the judge in an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. Her attorney had tried to paint her as a desperate mother driven to extremes by financial hardship. He talked about her children, about Derek's job loss, about the mounting bills and the foreclosure notice. He asked for leniency, suggesting probation and mandatory counseling. The prosecutor presented a different story. She showed photos of my injuries, the bruises, the contusions, the blood. She submitted my medical records detailing the emergency C-section, Grace's 5-week NICU stay, and the unusual situation of my continuing pregnancy. She read statements from Mrs. Chen, from the EMTs who'd responded to the scene, from the NICU nurses who'd cared for my daughter. The defendant didn't just assault her sister, the prosecutor said. She assaulted a pregnant woman with such force that she induced premature labor. She dragged her victim across the floor while that victim was in medical distress. And she fled the scene, leaving her sister unconscious and bleeding. This wasn't a moment of poor judgment. This was a sustained, vicious attack motivated by greed and entitlement. When given the chance to speak, Amber stood and turned to face me. Sarah, She swallowed hard. I can't explain what happened. I was drowning, and I thought if I just had that money, everything would be okay. But there's no excuse for what I did. I hurt you. I hurt your baby. And I destroyed our family. I stared at her, feeling nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a hollow emptiness where sisterly love used to be. The judge was a stern woman in her 60s named Judith Ramirez. She looked at Amber over her glasses with an expression of barely contained disgust. Ms. Sullivan, I've presided over many assault cases in my career. What makes yours particularly egregious is not just the violence you inflicted, but the target of that violence. You attacked your pregnant sister, fully aware that you were endangering not only her life but the life of her unborn child. The fact that her child survived is not thanks to any restraint on your part, it's purely fortunate circumstance and excellent medical care. Judge Ramirez paused, letting her words sink in. You broke into your sister's home under false pretenses. You attempted to steal financial information. When caught, rather than leaving peacefully, you escalated to extreme violence. These actions demonstrate a level of selfishness and disregard for human life that cannot be excused by financial hardship. Derek filed for divorce and was given full custody of their children. He reached out to apologize for Amber's actions, and we had a long conversation where he admitted he'd enabled her entitlement and jealousy for years. Grace came home from the NICU after 5 weeks. She was healthy and thriving, weighing in at just over 6 pounds. We brought her home to the nursery Marcus and I had prepared, which now needed an additional crib. I was enormous with a second baby, now at 36 weeks gestation. The doctors were monitoring me closely. Carrying a pregnancy while caring for a newborn was exhausting, but Marcus and his family were incredible. Patricia practically moved in, helping with night feedings and diaper changes while I rested and focused on staying healthy for the baby still inside me. 9 weeks after Grace was born, I went into labor with our second daughter. The timing was perfect, 40 weeks exactly for this baby, though my body had been through so much. This delivery was planned, a scheduled C-section on the left uterus this time, and thankfully uneventful. Emma Louise Anderson entered the world weighing 7 pounds 2 ounces, crying lustily and perfect. Holding both of my daughters, one born too early because of violence, one born right on time, felt like a completion. They were here. They were safe. They were mine. The trust fund that had caused so much drama became 2 trust funds. Marcus's parents split their gift equally between both girls and added another $50,000 to each account. They also hired a lawyer to ensure the accounts were protected with every legal safeguard available. Marcus and I didn't take that vacation to Hawaii immediately. Instead, we used the car his parents bought us to take our daughters on small trips around the state, building our family memories slowly and safely. A year later, I received a letter from Amber in prison. It was full of apologies and explanations, telling me she was in therapy and taking responsibility for her actions. She asked if she could see photos of the girls. I didn't respond. Maybe one day I would, but that day wasn't today. Perhaps it never would be, and I was okay with that. By this point, both Grace and Emma were thriving. Grace had caught up developmentally despite her premature start, and the girls were inseparable despite their 2-month age difference. Technically, Grace was 9 weeks older since she'd been born at 34 weeks, but we'd started celebrating their birthdays together, a decision that felt right for our family. My mother spent every Sunday at our house, doting on her granddaughters. She brought presents and patience, and slowly, we rebuilt something that resembled a healthy relationship. My father was a constant presence, proving that he meant it when he said he was standing with me. On the girls' first birthday, we celebrated them together even though Emma was technically 9 weeks younger. Our house was full of family and friends. Marcus's parents, his siblings and their kids, my parents, and even Derek brought Tyler, Madison, and Ethan. Derek pulled me aside during the party. "Thank you for letting me bring the kids. They ask about their aunt, but they're too young to understand what happened." "They're innocent in all this," I said, watching Tyler carefully hand Emma a toy. "They shouldn't be punished for their mother's choices." "You're more gracious than we deserved," he said quietly. I looked across the room at Marcus holding Grace while Patricia helped Emma smash her face into a cupcake. My family, whole and happy despite everything. "I'm not gracious," I told Derek. "I'm just done letting other people's choices define my life." Amber tried to take everything from me, but she failed. My daughters will grow up knowing they're loved, they're protected, and they're worth more than any amount of money. I never did share that trust fund. The money remained exactly where Marcus's parents intended it, set aside for my daughters' futures. Grace and Emma would have opportunities, educations, and security because people who loved them made sacrifices to provide those things. And if that made me selfish in some people's eyes, I'd learn to live with it. My daughters would never doubt their worth, never question whether they deserved good things, and never feel guilty for the blessings in their lives. That was my revenge, Not against Amber, but against the cycle of jealousy and entitlement that had poisoned my family. I broke it. My daughters would know better, be better, and build their lives on foundations of self-worth rather than resentment. 3 years later, Amber sent another letter asking if she could see the girls when she got parole. I finally responded, keeping it brief, no. Focus on healing yourself and rebuilding a relationship with your own children. My daughters don't need the complication. It felt good to set that boundary. It felt even better to know I meant it without anger or bitterness. She was my sister, and somewhere under all the damage, I still loved her. But love didn't mean giving her access to the life she tried to destroy. My story could have ended in tragedy. Instead, it ended with 2 beautiful daughters, a stronger marriage, and the knowledge that I was capable of protecting what mattered most. The scars on my body from that day were permanent reminders, but so was the strength I discovered. Grace and Emma would never know a time when they weren't loved fiercely and protected completely. And that made everything worth it.